The lady from Olmsted, Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Well, I just want to add a few things to the debate. I don't want to rehash some of the things that my colleagues have said very eloquently, and it makes me very proud to hear a lot of the speeches that have been given on the DFL side today. And Representative Lucero, I think it is very unfortunate. I agree with you that, you know, tolerance, we can all actually display intolerance at times, and that is really unfortunate. And you know, I wasn't there, I'm not on the committee, but, you know, I hear your pain in that, and, you know, it isn't for me to apologize for it, but I certainly want to reach out to you and say that I agree that that's wrong. And you know, it's actually sometimes we as legislators, we as public officials get treated pretty badly at times, and I think that most of us kind of, you know, we get used to it in a sense because we know it's part of the job, but it is wrong. So I want you to know that I agree with you on that. I did want to comment on a few things I've heard, though. You know, Representative Fabian, I think you're, it may be that people in parts of rural Minnesota, you know, don't understand. Some people, you know, it may be that some of the things that people feel as injustices in one part of the state are not understood quite so well as another. But I think that Representative May Quaid talked about the farmer protest in the 80s. And I think she made a really good point that this could be any of us. And if under, you know, farmers today could be doing the same thing, driving their equipment down the road to protest some, you know, maybe they'd want to protest levies on farm property. Maybe it would get so bad that they'd say, well, we got to go to St. Paul and let them know how strongly we feel, and they might be blocking the roads to do it. Well, it's already illegal to block the road. People already know that isn't something they should be doing, and yet what this bill is doing is increasing the penalties for that. That is the problem. Members on this side have said that that doesn't deter anybody. It doesn't do that. What it may do, though, is, you know, it lets people know that there's something wrong with protest. Now, I agree that the First Amendment does not protect everything. Just because you're expressing yourself doesn't mean you can do it in any way you like. But I think it's pretty clear that what's being done here is in response to protests that occurred, and that is what makes it really troubling. I really don't think it's about public safety. And I did want to respond to Representative Dean. You know, I think it's a straw man argument to say, oh, people were dropping concrete on police officers and they're rioting. Of course that's illegal. Of course that's bad. Somebody who drops concrete off a bridge onto somebody, that is assault in some pretty serious measure, probably a felony, I would imagine. Can't imagine that it isn't. And those people should be punished. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking, nobody on our side, I hope nobody on your side, is talking about excusing that kind of violent behavior that puts people's, you know, that assaults somebody or creates a riot. That's not what we're talking about here. But what I really stood to say, or when I raised my hand here, was that I think there's a real irony in some of the discussion today, because we heard some compelling statements from Representative Zerwas, from Representative Lomer about the importance of being able to get through the traffic, to get where you're going, to get to the hospital, to get back and forth. And they gave a lot of very compelling stories. And boy, I thought I was listening to the transportation bill. You know, yeah, it's really important for people to get where they're going. That's why we should put some more money into roads and bridges. That's why we should have light rail. That's why you guys voted to cut the subsidies for people who use transit in the metro area. That's going to make it harder to get down the road, Representative Lomer. If that's your real concern, let's take up the transportation bill and put some real money into it. I have a really hard time believing that you guys are so sincere, or maybe you just don't think about it except when you've got your particular anecdote to talk about. But honestly, are we debating a transportation bill here? Because I think you guys really failed on that score. So that's what I really rose to say. I think it's really ironic that we're talking here about how we've got to be able to get through the roads, and somebody handed out something here, maybe Representative Omar's handed out something, she's probably going to speak to it, but so I won't, but, you know, people know that when they're breaking the law, that's not protected. They know they can be arrested, and sometimes they just feel that what they are doing and what they're talking about is so important that they need to take that risk. And that can be any of our constituents, and it can be for any cause. And I think that very American way of protesting really helps us continue as a democracy, because people who feel really strongly can risk being arrested. They know that what they're doing is illegal, and they're going to do it anyway, as some of my colleagues have said. But I think what this bill does is really target people as a response to a particular incident where some people really don't think that this was the right way to do it, and other people think that we don't want to stop people in the future from feeling like they can protest when they think that things are wrong, whether it's a farmer, whether it's people from rural America wanting to drive their tractors in. And, you know, sometimes I get kind of frustrated when a big piece of farm machinery pulls out in front of me on the road. I know that's legal. They're not trying to block the road, but it sure feels like they are. But I think that this amendment is the right way to go. We shouldn't be targeting protests in this bill, and if we're really, really concerned about transportation, which we all should be, then Representative Drazkowski should not be trying to stop my community from having zip rail. We should be working on getting people places faster, breaking into that traffic, getting people off the roads, making sure that they can get to the hospital, or they can get to the place they want to go for recreation, or they can get down to the Mayo Clinic when it's not an emergency, because they can get on maybe they don't drive, Representative Drazkowski, maybe they want to get on that zip rail and ride down to Rochester and go to the Mayo Clinic. You know, I don't think that's so bad. So maybe we ought to revisit that transportation bill, because some of the Republican members sure seem to feel like they did an inadequate job the first time.